Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Coffee with Katie. I have my sweater weather mug today and I have some sugar cookie creamer from Starbucks. It's supposed to be kind of like their sugar cookie lattes. I never think creamers are as good as like getting a latte with syrup in the store, but we're giving this a shot today. I also never drink my coffee with creamer, so it's kind of just like a random treat. Today's video is going to be my opinions on the Goodreads Choice Awards. Not the nominees, the actual winners of the categories. I did this last year and I actually thought it was really fun and I actually found a lot of books that I wanted to read. One of them I did end up reading and loving, and it was like Practice Makes Perfect, which was like a contemporary romance, which is not usually something that I read. So I'm excited to go through these again and just kind of give you my random opinions on them, whether I've read them or not. Maybe you don't want to see this, but we're doing it anyway. I got my handy dandy iPad and let's just go. All right, let's view the results of the Goodreads Choice Awards. So one thing I will say that I'm kind of upset about before we even get into this is that they eliminated the middle grade category, and I think that is real lame. I think there's so many good middle grades out there, and I'm just really upset about it. I feel like that's a bad move on their part, but I'm sure they had reasons for it. So the first category is fiction, just straight fiction, and the reader's favorite fiction book for 2024 was The Wedding People by Alison Espach. And this is not my category at all, so I don't really know a lot about it, but it is kind of surprising that Sally Rooney's new book, Intermezzo, did not win, because I feel like people really like her books as well, and she's like one of those authors that you recognize her name, right? So The Wedding got over 94,000 votes. Sally Rooney's got over 65,000 votes. And then Welcome to the Hunam Dung Bookshop got 51,000 votes, or over that. And Blue Sisters by Coco Mellors got over 50,000 votes. I haven't read like anything in this category really, so I have no opinions and I didn't vote in it. But The Wedding People says it's a propulsive and uncommonly wise novel about one unexpected wedding guest and the surprising people who help her start anew. The Wedding People is ultimately an incredibly nuanced and resonant look at the winding paths we can take to places we've never imagined and the chance encounters it sometimes takes to reroute us. That sounds kind of cute, but again, this is not my usual reading category, so I don't really have opinions. But there are a lot of books on here. A lot of them that I've never heard of as well, but I don't know if it should have won, but I don't know anything about this. So that's the winner for this category. And then next is historical fiction. And the winner for this is The Women by Kristen Hanna. I feel like this isn't really a surprise because Kristen Hanna is one of those really well-known authors that I feel like every time her name comes up in one of these voting situations, she wins. Over 250,000 votes, which is wild. The runner-up is James by Percival Everett, which is a Pulitzer Prize finalist. The Frozen River by Ariel Lawhon also came in like third. And then The Book Lover's Library by Madeline Martin. Those are like the top four in the category. I'm not really a big Kristen Hanna, well, no, I can't say that. I'm not a big historical fiction fan. It has to be very niche. It's like a very niche thing that I like, where it's like Regency and feminist and stuff like that. But I have heard amazing things about this author from my friends personally that really like historical fiction and they like Kristen Hanna. I do think this one's a little bit more interesting because I think it's talking about women at war. Let me see. At once an intimate portrait of a coming of age in a dangerous time and an epic tale of a nation divided. Women can be heroes. When 20-year-old nursing student Frankie McGrath hears these words, it is a revelation. Raised in the sun-drenched, idyllic world of Southern California and sheltered by her conservative parents, she's always prided herself on doing the right thing. But in 1965, the world is changing, and she suddenly dares to imagine a different future for herself. When her brother ships out to serve in Vietnam, she joins the Army Nurse Corps and follows his path. As green and inexperienced as the men sent to Vietnam to fight, Frankie is overwhelmed by the chaos and destruction of war. Each day is a gamble of life and death, hope and betrayal. Friendships run deep and can be shattered in an instant. In war, she meets and becomes one of the lucky, the brave, the broken, and the lost. But war is just the beginning for Frankie and her veteran friends. The real battle lies in coming home to a changed and divided America, to angry protesters, and to a country that wants to forget Vietnam. The Women is the story of one woman gone to war, but it shines a light on all women who put themselves in harm's way and whose sacrifice and commitment to their country has too often been forgotten. A novel about deep friendships and bold patriotism, The Women is a richly drawn story with a memorable heroine whose idealism and courage under fire will come to define an era. I mean, that sounds really good, right? It does. And it's probably really interesting. I might actually like this, but it takes a lot for me to be intrigued enough to pick up a historical fiction book. But if you've read that, let me know. And do you think this should have won in this category? Next category is mystery thriller, which I do like, but I haven't read a lot of them because I just don't find ones that I've enjoyed that much, that I don't like delve deep into the genre, you know? But the winner for this one is The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. I've never heard of this. In 1975, troubled teenager Barbara Van Laar vanished from her bunk at the summer camp owned by her the wealthy family. Making things so much worse, her older brother disappeared much the same way 16 years ago. Author Liz Moore expands this intriguing premise into an emotionally engaging mystery that blends elements of crime fiction, psychological suspense, and complex family drama. The way that's pitched makes it sound good. This won by getting over 82,000 votes. The next one, the runner-up, was First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston, which was about 74,000 votes, a little bit over. And then Frida McFadden's new book, The Boyfriend, got over 57,000 votes. And then The Teacher by Frida McFadden, which is interesting that both, like, two of her books are in the top 4. And that got over 56,000 votes. Again, this isn't one that I'm super, like... I don't know a lot about it, right? But I am very surprised that that won because, scrolling down here a little bit, Lucy Foley's new book, The Midnight Feast, did not win, which is shocking to me. Also, Middle of the Night by Riley Sager and The Mystery Guest by Nita Prose. I feel like all of those are kind of big names in like mystery thriller right now, and none of them won, which is really interesting. I also think this cover looks really cool, How to Solve Your Own Murder, by Kristen Perrin. And it says that this book is an enormously fun mystery about a woman who spends her entire life trying to prevent her foretold murder, only to be proven right 60 years later when she is found dead in her sprawling country estate. Now it's up to her great niece to catch the killer. That actually sounds super good. I kind of want to read that. I'm kind of bitter about Lucy Foley books. I don't like them. At least the two that I've read. I feel like people really like Riley Sager, so it's really surprising to me that he lost, but I'm kind of curious. I need really good thriller recommendations. Please give them to me. Maybe I need to read The God of the Woods. I don't know. But I have been curious about the Nita Prose's series. I think I would really like that one. I haven't really heard of these. I've heard of the author, Rachel Hawkins, but not the heiress. This cover too, Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose, but I don't know. Again, this isn't something I want to delve into this genre more, but I haven't gotten a lot of traction. I always ask for recommendations, so if you do have any, please give them to me, but I don't know, not a whole lot of opinions for me about this, obviously. I haven't read a lot in this genre this year. Next category is romance, which I think is like contemporary romance because there's also a romantasy category. And the winner for romance, no surprise, is Funny Story by Emily Henry. I feel like if Emily Henry is in the running, she always wins. Again, one of those like big name authors. But it is a little bit surprising because Ali Hazelwood was also in the running and did not win. And I personally like Ali Hazelwood, so it's a little bit surprising to me. I've never read anything from Emily Henry, but she has so much hype behind her that I'm sure that I'll like something that she writes. Funny Story is an instructive modern parable about a heartbroken librarian who attempts an extremely tricky maneuver, hooking up with her ex-fiance's new fiance's ex. Very dangerous, don't try this at home. That sounds kind of funny, but also kind of weird. But obviously it won. It got over 179,000 votes. Wild. The runner-up got over 140,000 votes, and that's Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. And then Bride by Ali Hazelwood got over 99,000 votes. I did read this and really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good, actually. I was really surprised because thus far, this was the first like fantasy that Ali Hazelwood delved into, and I really liked it. After that, we have Leather and Lark by Bryn Weaver, and The Butcher and the Blackbird is one that I'm kind of curious about. I like that they're both kind of like vigilante serial killer type people, but it is kind of weird, and I've heard like some of the stuff in the books will ruin things for you. I don't know how I feel about that. But I am curious. I will read it at some point. I've heard of Anna Huang, but I've never read any of her books. But King of Sloth is on this, as well as Wild Love by Elsie Silver and Christina Lauren, The Paradise Problem. Like, those are author names that I've heard of. The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore by Lori Gilmore. That one's interesting because I did just read The Christmas Tree Farm by her, and I did like it. So eventually I will probably read the rest of that series. And Not in Love by Ailey Hazelwood was also on here, but it only got 10,000 votes. And I don't know if that's because people didn't read it or because it wasn't like that. I was going to say it wasn't that good, but that's not what I mean. Like, it wasn't that hyped. It wasn't that viral. Yeah, I don't know. None of these were super intriguing to me besides the Bryn Weaver books and Lori Gilmore, but Emily Henry wins again. But then we get into romantasy, where I feel like I can have a little bit of opinions about, even though I feel like a lot of these are on my TBR and I haven't read a ton of them. I feel like I have, but I haven't. I don't think anybody's surprised, but House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas won by 122,000 votes. To be honest, Sarah J. Maas is going to win whatever category she's in, right? But to be honest, I don't think this is the best one in the list. It was okay. I don't think it's the best one by any means. The runner-up was my favorite. I think that's the one that I ended up voting for. And for comparison, House of Flame and Shadow, over 122,000 votes. The runner-up, the next one, over 56,000 votes. That is a huge margin. Like, that's crazy. But it was Apprentice to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Maher. I love Assistant to the Villain and Apprentice to the Villain. I think it should have won. But I also haven't read all of the books in this list, so take that with a grain of salt. But it was the runner-up. Then right after that, with over 49,000 votes, was Quicksilver by Callie Hart. This is on my TBR. I really want to read it real soon. I've heard really good things about it. I actually have a copy of it here I just got from Waterstones. And then right after that, for over 48,000 votes, was When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. I started this, but I haven't finished it. It was like a softie enough. It wasn't like I wasn't enjoying it, but I just didn't finish it. And then I moved on to my other TBRs in the month, if that makes sense. I do want to finish it soon, very soon. I did like it, but I was in very much the beginning of the story where it's still building a lot of the plot and a lot of the world. So it was kind of slow starting. And I've heard some people say they get bored before it like really kicks off, but I'm curious about that. So those are the first four, but I kind of want to go through a lot. I want to go through more of these because I feel like I have more knowledge about this topic. The one after that is The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. I did read this, did really, really enjoy it. It's more of a cozy fantasy, so it's understandable that it didn't necessarily win, but I think it was really good. And then A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. I haven't read this, but I really want to. I feel like that's most of these books. And then Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. I really want to read this as well. I've heard pretty good things about it, and I'm very curious about this book. I can't remember what it's about. I think what intrigued me about this, it says it's a dark fantasy romance, but it said Caraval meets Throne of the Fallen. In this spicy, dark romantasy where a necromancer needs help from a dangerous phantom to win a deadly competition, only to find their partnership puts her at risk of breaking the game's most vital rule, don't fall in love. That part's kind of silly. But Caraval meets Throne of the Fallen, say less. So I do really want to read that one. And then a Zodiac Academy book is on here. I haven't read those, so I don't really care. And then Born of Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I feel like that series is just droning on. I'm sorry if you love it. It's fine if you do. I haven't even finished the first trilogy, so don't have a lot to say about that. A Touch of Chaos is on here, and I always think these books have already been released, but apparently not. I read the first book in that series by Scarlett St. Clair. I didn't like it. I'm DNFing the series, so whoops. And Honey Witch by Sydney J. Shields. I don't know why, but this book didn't intrigue me. I don't know why. I like the Spell Shop and stuff, but for some reason this one I just wasn't didn't have any interest in reading. I do want to read Faybound by Sarai El Arifi, but I don't know exactly when I'm going to get to that. Blood of Hercules by Jasmine Maz is also one that has kind of been coming up again and again, and I am curious about it, but I don't know when I would get to that. I did get a copy of The Games Gods Play by Abigail Owen. I hope it's good. I don't really know. The last book of I think it's the last book in the Plated Prisoner series, Gold, is on here. The Veiled Kingdom by Holly Renee, those are all names that I recognize. Natasha J. Tooley, Fate of the Sun King. I have been curious about that series as well. I think the first one is like Daughter of the Sun King or something. If you've read any of these that I mentioned, I would love to hear your thoughts on them. Especially Phantasma, the Sun King series, and Quicksilver, because I really want to read Quicksilver and Phantasma. Next category is fantasy, and the winner of the fantasy category was Somewhere Beyond the Sea by TJ Klune. This is where I feel like maybe a cozy fantasy genre would be helpful, because I haven't read any of TJ Klune's works, so I can't say anything about it. I can't say he's good or bad, but I think it's one of those times where the author name is just dominating a category because of a book they read or because of a book they wrote a long time ago or whatever. It's like Sarah J. Maas. If Sarah J. Maas is in the category, she's going to dominate. And I kind of feel like that about this book, but I haven't read it, so understand that right now. But for some reason, I feel that he only won because his name. And I feel like that about the first two, because the other one is Leigh Bardugo, The Familiar. And one of them is over 69, TJ Klune's is over 69,000 and Leigh Bardugo's is over 68,000. So they were like almost tied. And I feel like it's just the name that people are recognizing, which happens, it does. It's just a byproduct of this kind of voting system. But what I feel like should have won, that got over 50,000 votes, was Map of the Otherlands by Emily Wilde. I love that book. It is so good. And the first one was so good. And the one that came after that, the one in fourth place with over 33,000 votes, The Book of Doors by Gareth Brown, was one of my favorite books of the year. It blew me away. I was not expecting it. I picked it up on a whim and I loved it. And it probably deserved to win too, you know? Lower on the list, I think the one I voted for didn't even make it in top 4, but then lower on the list, Empire of the Damned by Jay Kristoff, Five Broken Blades by Mia Corland. I've never heard of The Foxwife. The Lost Story, never heard of that. The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. I loved that book as well. It didn't even make it in the top 8. Blackbird Oracle, An Academy for Liars, A Sorceress Comes to Call by Teen Kingfisher. I do love her. A Song to Drown Rivers, Warm Hands of Ghosts, Wind Among Crows, The Bright Sword, Voyage of the Damned, The Dead Cattail Assassins. You know, there's just so many of these bigger names on here. I'm really surprised that TJ Klune beat all of those out. And there's a big following for Jay Kristoff. I don't know. What do you think about that category? I'm not sure. Then for science fiction, this kind of surprised me, but I think it's because I haven't read it, so I don't know the hype. The Ministry of Time won this category with over 78,000 votes. And then right after that is The Family Experiment by John Mars. And that's one I don't want to read by John Mars because it sounds weird about babies. And then Annie Bot, don't know what that is, by Sierra Greer. And The Mercy of Gods by James S.A. Corey. That one kind of makes sense because he's kind of a bigger name in sci-fi. But The Ministry of Time, it makes me want to read it because I'm so curious why it won. And I've heard pretty good things about it. So for that one, it says it's a time travel romance, a spy thriller, a workplace comedy, and an ingenious exploration of the nature of power and the potential for love to change it all. That sounds pretty interesting, right? I wonder if it's because it's more romancy that it won. I don't know. I'm kind of curious though. I think I will read that at some point. I won't read the John Mars one. I just won't. Absolution by Jeff Vandermeer. Okay. I've never read his books, but I watched Annihilation and it traumatized me to my very core. And I never want to watch it or read anything from him. But there's so many in here that I've never heard of. And I'm like, where's I don't know, a Red Rising book? Maybe that came out last year? I can't even remember now. Wow. I don't remember when Lightbringer came out. No, I don't know. I don't recognize a lot of these books, which is weird. Maybe it's not weird. Maybe I'm not really in this genre as much as I think I am, but didn't a Murder Bell book come out? I don't know. Next category is horror. I guarantee you I've read nothing from this category because it's not my category. The winner, though, was Stephen King, You Like It Darker, with over 60,000 votes. Are we surprised that Stephen King won? No, he's always going to win. The Stephen King one, though, is actually a little bit interesting because it's a short story collection on the abiding terrors of the human condition. Fate, immortality, tragedy, and violence. Also, rattlesnakes. The runner-up is We Used to Live Here with over 46,000 votes. Ew, it says Get Out meets Parasite in this eerily haunting debut and Reddit hit. Soon to be a Netflix original movie starring Blake Lively, okay? About two homeowners whose lives are turned upside down when the house's previous residents unexpectedly visit. That's very vague. And then Teen Kingfisher's book, What Feasts at Night, got 24,000 votes. So that's cool that she made it up there. And then Murder Road by Simon St. James, with over 23,000 votes. And not my genre. I don't really read anything in horror, so I don't really recognize any of these. There's that. And then debut novel. I do like this genre. I just think it's fun. Or this category. I think it's fun. For debut novel, though, How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kwang won, which I was also kind of disappointed in. Not because of anything about this book. I've never read it. But because The Book of Doors was also in this category and it didn't win. It didn't win any of them. It's upsetting. I voted for it. But it's a romantasy debut featuring two writers with a tragic past who reunite on the TV adaptation of a famous book series. Apparently people like this. It got over 63,000 votes. And then The Ministry of Time got over 44,000 votes. We Used to Live Here got over 43,000 votes. And then The Book of Doors got over 34,000 votes. The others on here, I honestly had not really heard of before. The Voyage of the Damned is the only one I'd heard of outside of these lists, I think. Maybe Masquerade I heard of, but most of them I hadn't really heard of. And then they did a new category this year, which is really interesting to me, but I have thoughts. It's the audiobook category. But how does one narrow that down? How are they narrowing that down to the choices they gave us? Because there's 20 audiobooks here. Did they get one from every genre? Like, how are they? It seems so crazy to me because the audiobook would solely be based on the narrator, I guess, the performance, because there's so many categories for so many different genres. And then they have an audiobook category that has all of the genres. It's just weird to me. And I hadn't listened to a single one of these. And 95% of my reading is audiobooks. I haven't listened to a single one of these all year. Obviously, I listen to more fantasy and stuff like that, but you would think with me listening to audiobooks for most of my reading, if not all of it, I would have read something, I would have listened to something on this list, but I haven't. So it's just kind of a weird category to me. I don't really understand how they're organizing it, how they're doing it, but Emily Henry's book won, Funny Story, with over 72,000 votes. And then Kristen Hanna's The Women with over 61,000 votes. And then Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez with over 54,000 votes. And then Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera got over 36,000 votes. I just don't understand. It is interesting that 1984 Audible Original is in the running. And then Somewhere Beyond the Sea by TJ Klune. First Lie wins, Ashley Elston. A lot of the ones that were already in the runnings for other categories or like were high up in the other categories are on this, which I think is suspicious. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just being really cynical and weird about it, but it feels weird. Sally Rooney's, yeah, like I just don't get it. Ooh, what's this one? This one actually looks kind of fun. Maybe This Time. Audible Original? Finding true love is only a matter of time in this heartfelt and hilarious romantic comedy. Oh, and it's a full cast. That's cool. Romance can be a little complicated when you get sucked into a wormhole. Just ask high school English teacher June Flint. One little solar flare happens and suddenly you find yourself 85 years in the future, 85 years from your dream job, your ailing mother whose only companion in this world is you, your favorite stuffed crust pizza from DeLuca's on Sunday nights. But when June's cell phone inexplicably picks up a signal, she's able to call back to the present. More specifically, 4 weeks before she accidentally time traveled. Problem is, the phone can only call one number, her work nemesis, gem teacher Mikey Shannon. Now, future June must help Mikey befriend present-day June to keep her from disappearing. That's actually really interesting. This is why I do these lists, so I can find things like this. I kind of want to read that. That sounds good. Next category is YA fantasy. The winner for this one was Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. I'm not mad about that. I really liked this duology, but I thought Divine Rivals was better than Ruthless Vows. I'm not mad about it winning, but maybe something else could have beat it out. We also have Reckless by Lauren Roberts. I really want to read the Powerless series desperately, so I'm kind of sad that I haven't read a lot of this category. I did read Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli, and that came in third with over 62,000 votes. Reckless got 85,000 votes. Rebecca Ross, 93,000. And then The Prisoner's Throne by Holly Black got over 36,000. People really love that series, and she's a big name, but I don't really understand the Cruel Prince hype. Brandon Sanderson with Defiant got up here. The Library Hides by Isabella Banez is also on this list. I haven't been able to read that yet, but I think it's the last book in this duology. I think I ended up voting for Wisteria by Adeline Grace. Out of the choices I was given, I did read that one, but there's a lot of books on this list that I wanted to read or don't have interest in reading. It's like one of the two. Air by Sabaa Tahir, that's interesting, but I haven't finished the Amber and the Ashes series yet. All This Twisted Glory by Tahira Mafi, Where the Dark Stands Still, Immortal Dark. Dragonfruit is one that I really want to read. I've heard good things about that. Darkness Within Us by Trisha Levenseller, definitely on my TBR. Of Jade and Dragons also sounded interesting, and For She Is Wrath is something I want to read really soon by Emily Varga. And then Your Blood by Bones. So they had some pretty good choices, I think, but not a ton that were like jumping out at me. And then we have YA fiction. No surprise here. The winner was Heartstopper Volume 5. I didn't even know there's another Heartstopper coming out by Alice Osman. This is a beloved series, so it's not surprising that it won. However, Holly Jackson's new book won second place, obviously, not won. Heartstopper got over 81,000 votes. This one got over 56,000 votes, but the reappearance of Rachel Price, and after my disappointment, chasm, reading her book that came out last year, I wanted to read this to give her another shot, but also was scared. So I'm a little skeptical. I'm like, should you really have won, or people just recognize your name again? Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. That kind of sounds pretty funny. The Grandest Game by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. People love that series. I don't really get it. I've seen Gwen and Art are not in love, and I would understand people liking that as well as Most Ardently. Dungeons and Drama looks kind of cute. I think this is a series, and I think I want to read Dating and Dragons, so maybe Dungeons and Drama is one that I should read first, because it does sound really cute. It's like D&D romance. It just sounds cute and funny. Let's read about the first one, since I already know I want to read the second one. When it comes to romance, sometimes it doesn't hurt to play games. A fun YA rom-com full of fake dating hijinks. Musical lover Riley has big aspirations to become a director on Broadway. Crucial to this plan is to bring back her high school spring musical. But when Riley takes her mom's car without permission, she's grounded and stuck with the worst punishment: spending her after-school hours working at her dad's game shop. Riley can't waste her time working when she has a musical to save, so she convinces Nathan, a nerdy teen employee, to cover her shifts, and in exchange, she'll flirt with him to make his gamer girl crush jealous. Riley didn't realize that meant joining Nathan's Dungeons and Dragons game, or that role-playing would be so fun. Soon Riley starts to think that flirting with Nathan doesn't require as much acting as she would have thought. I should probably read that one too, but the second one is one I definitely want to read. I've heard of Tilly Cole, 1,000 Boy Kisses or something, and this is like 1,000 Broken Pieces. I'm assuming it's a sequel. I don't really know. And then nonfiction is the next category. I haven't read a lot of nonfiction that has come out this year. I have read a lot more this year, but the winner was The Anxious Generation: How the Great Rewiring of Childhood Caused an Epidemic of Mental Illness. That sounds very interesting and depressing. It says, in what may be the year's most discussed book, Jonathan provides a rigorously researched assessment of adolescent mental health in the 21st century. The depression diagnosis, the arrival of the phone-based childhood, is essentially rewiring the very existence of growing up. Scary, sad, but it also sounds like it would be really good. So I think it's not bad that it won. The second one is one that I actually do really want to read, the runner-up. That one got 39,000 votes. This one was 28. And it's not Hysteria, everything you need to know about your gynecological health, but we're never told. An exclusive and essential guide to reproductive health, including period problems, pelvic pain, menopause, fertility, sexual health, vaginal and urinary conditions, and overall well-being. And that's something that is kind of frustrating for me personally in my journey of health. And women's health being so understudied and not understood at all, and then you're just kind of told that you're crazy. So that is one that I want to read. But there's a lot of ones on here that I've never heard of. It's interesting that they have the untold story of the rise and fall of Disney Channel's tween empire, Disney High. Like, that's interesting. But yeah, not a lot for me to say in this category. Then where there is the memoir, and I think it's really cute that the winner was The Third Gilmore Girl, a memoir by Kelly Bishop. She plays Emily in the series. I think that would maybe be fun to read at some point. It got over 80,000 votes. And the runner-up is Sociopath, a memoir by Patrick Gagna. I don't really know how to say that last name. But it's a fascinating revelatory memoir revealing the author's struggle to come to terms with her own sociopathy and shed light on this often maligned and misunderstood mental disorder. That is pretty interesting. I'm not gonna lie, I would probably read that at some point because it must be horrifying to have that disorder. Like, just what do you do? What do you do? How do you function? Then in third place was From Here to the Great Unknown, Lisa Marie Presley. Must be something about the life of the family of Elvis Presley, which is interesting. Loud by Drew Afilo, I don't know. Some book about RuPaul. There's a lot of books on here, I don't know. Not a lot that I'm interested in, but a couple I am. And then the last category is History and Biography. And the winner for this, which is kind of interesting, is The Bookshop, A History of the American Bookstore. It got over 38,000 votes. And it says, the Chronicle of the American Bookstore digs deep into the history to illuminate the soft power of these irreplaceable literary institutions. He makes a persuasive case that bookstore nurtures and create local communities, each of which branches out into our culture, discourse, and public policy. It's really cool. It's probably not something I'm going to read, at least right now, but it is really interesting. And then The Small and the Mighty by Sharon McMahon, The Demon of Unrest, and Marie Curie by David Sobel. There's a lot of books on here, obviously, but not a lot that I have read nor will read. But that rounds out the 2024 Goodreads Choice Awards. What did you think this year? Did you think there were a lot of like mid books? Did you think there were a lot of hits? Did you think that the Goodreads selection reflected what is actually good? I feel like that's the debate. Nobody thinks that it's actually accurate. But I would love to know your thoughts. Leave them in the comments down below. But for now, that is it for today's video and my thoughts on the Goodreads Choice Awards. Please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and caffeinated. Bye.